up in the mountains, King William II's creation soars towards God with all the confidence of his warrior dynasty.
William II's nickname from the Arabic was "he who strives to be closer to God." A sort of mark, basically, of his reverence, his piety, his devotion to his religion. Well, for someone who wants to be closer to God, what better way to express that closeness than in building a cathedral like this? Who are the people responsible for these great works of art? Well, they were Greeks from Byzantium. What is interesting is here, under Norman patronage, actually their art in a sense is more advanced, more sophisticated and more fluid than similar art in Byzantium. Mosaic work there would take another 150 years to attain the standards that were achieved here. The other thing that's very interesting about these Greek masters is that they are all anonymous. We know not one of their names. To us today, it would be inconceivable that such art would be created and nobody would put up their hands to take the credit for it. Trade isn't always about flagons of wine or bales of cotton or crates full of produce. Sometimes the commodity is so vital that actually owning it gives you power over other people. Salt here in the Camargue is exactly such a product. The Greeks were the first people to make it here, and during the time of the Roman Empire, it was considered so important that it was basically an imperial monopoly. The emperor owned it all. In France today, they still make it, as you can see, and basically the principle of the manufacturing is very simple. It's a huge sort of skillet or frying pan, very shallow, and in it there's like a mixture of silt and seawater. It's been there all year with the sun beating down on it and the water steadily evaporating off. In October, they then harvest it, and the results of that harvest are these enormous, like mini Alps behind me, these literally mountains of salt. I've never seen salt in such quantities before in my life. Modern Greek drama really started in the 6th century BC when Pisistratus commissioned a playwriting competition for the spring festival of the god Dionysus. He stipulated that each play should be in 3 parts and each part should be self-contained. Further, there should be a satire play on the end. And what interests me about the satire plays is that it is a mark, if you like, of political and social maturity on the behalf of the Greeks. Because if you are able to, if you like, take the Michael out of your own institutions and make fun of your leaders and of your famous people, then in a sense, as a people, you are growing up. I'm now at the old armories of the Florentine Republic in Pisa, and inside there's an exhibition dedicated to one of the most exciting recent archaeological finds. Now, a great deal of the cargo, of course, during Roman times would have travelled still by land, but it would have been the precious, high-value stuff, and it would have been considered safer to send it that way. The merchant fleet of the Roman Empire was very much more concerned with the high-volume bulk produce, basically the food of the empire. And it would have been wheat, olive oil, or wine. And it would have been stored in these amphora that you see here. Of course, amphora, sort of archaeologists joke, they're the Coke cans, if you like, of the Roman Empire, and the Romans left them littered liberally all around the Mediterranean Sea. On one of the ships, they found that these amphora had all been wedged safely in place to stop them rolling around using little marble chips, really a sort of ancient version of bubble wrap or packaging. I like that. It's the sort of detail of the way in which ordinary Romans went about their business, basically carried out their work. When we talk of ancient civilizations in the Mediterranean, we're usually thinking of either Greece or Rome, but quite frankly, their history in every sense of the term. It's important to remember that there were plenty of people around here before that, what we would call the prehistoric civilizations. So I've come to Calas Covas in Menorca to try to find out a little bit about them, who they were, how they lived, what they did at the weekend. The first people to have lived here would have probably arrived in these caves about 5,000 years before Christ. And the funny thing is, I just get here now and I find someone's been living here really pretty recently. This is clearly not a prehistoric wicker chair. Not only that, but I see they've got the magazine Future Music. It's nice to think of people living in a cave but studying techno. The most striking thing about this cave, however, has got to be these beautiful sleeping bays, really, I suppose they are, carved out of the solid rock here. There's 4 of them in a row. And I think the thing I really like about all this is that these caves all have been in constant occupation, probably for 7,000 years. A landlord's dream, you would think, except of course it's very unlikely a single penny ever changed hands. Right, well here I am. I'm actually now upstairs in the Columbus household. There's not a lot left in the way of furniture here. This is quite nice here, I like this. It's a marble relief of his flagship, Santa Maria. I think this is a later edition. I don't think he actually had this on his walls as a teenager. The thing I find about Genoa is he's everywhere, this chap, Christopher Columbus. As soon as you come out of the main railway station, there's an enormous statue of him. There are references to him everywhere. There are icons, street names. It goes on and on. It seems to me, really, that for the Genovese, Christopher Columbus is a sort of cross between a Holy Roman Catholic saint on the one hand and Elvis Presley on the other. Okay, you're a beautiful woman and you are married to one of the richest merchant bankers on earth, and you're living in Genoa at the tail end of the 16th century. What do you spend your money on? Well, the answer for this lady next to me is that you have your portrait painted. Now, why would these people spend their money on art? Well, of course, in the first place, they want to show just how much money they have. But much more importantly, what they're doing is they're showing just how refined they are, just what great aesthetic taste they really have. If you had lived in those days and you had enough money to buy a Genoese merchant ship with all of its cargo, you'd have then had just enough money to buy the dress that that woman is wearing. Of all the things that I've seen in Genoa, this painting, more than any other, sums up the phrase that they use to describe the city. La superba, the proud one. Well, I found Genoa to be a city of style and culture. And that's a city I can do business with.